No one here to guide you. Now you're on your own. Only me beside you. Still you're not alone. No one is alone. Truly, no one is alone.
David, back in February, as I was preparing to send you my annual birthday greeting, accompanied by a mild reprimand for not responding to my recent emails, my heart nearly stopped. There in front of me on your Facebook page was a tribute written to you by one of your former students. I scrolled down and discovered hundreds of posts, pictures, and comments from your former UF students. It wasn't long before my cheeks were marked by tears of sorrow and regret. If only I had known. If only I had known, I would have made the trip to Indiana to honor my old mentor and friend. But it was too late. David, I am so sorry. It's been 57 years since our paths first crossed at William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri. I shared with you many times what an impact you had on my life. In so many ways. You took an introverted young college student under your wing and became his teacher, mentor, friend, and substitute dad. To this day, I am still influenced by you. As an educator, actor, and director, I have used the lessons you instilled in me. I could share so many stories. Summer stock in Michigan, graduate school at Mizzou, road trips to Indiana and Georgia, projectile vomit, purchasing luggage for me when I had none. But most important was the care and the honesty in which you shared all of the valuable lessons with me when I was just an eager but raw young theater student. Lessons I still use today. Just yesterday in rehearsal, when asked about character development, I found myself explaining the importance of finding real, honest choices and bringing them to life. As I shared those words, inside I was smiling and thinking of the man who first shared them with me. I will miss you, David.
Someone else is not. While you're seeing your side, maybe you forgot they are not alone. No one is alone.
I first met Dr. Shelton at my audition for the MFA program at the University of Florida. They held the audition in the conference room at the theater offices on campus, and I went in, the whole theater faculty was there, and I performed my monologues, and we chatted for a little bit, and then Doc got up and excused himself because he had a prior engagement. And very nice to meet you, and he left the room, and I continued chatting with the rest of the faculty, and at one point they said, well, do you have anything else to show us? And I had one or two extra monologues, so I said yes, and I performed these 2 extra monologues. Well, now jump forward a couple months, and I've been accepted. I'm in the University of Florida MFA program. I'm in Dr. Shelton's acting class, and we're a week or 2 in, and he decides he's going to go around and tell each person exactly why they're there. And the first person he looks at is Rob Thompson. And he says, Rob, you are a wonderful ingenue, and we really wanted to have a really good ingenue in our MFA program. And then he looks at Ann Hurden and says, Ann, we love having your sister here. You Hurden girls are both so talented. We wanted more Hurden girls here, and we're just so happy to have you here. And then he says wonderful things about Maggie. He says wonderful things about Deborah. And then he gets to me, and he stops. And he says, I don't know why we let you in here. You must have done something decent after I left the room that day, because what I saw was just awful. But as cutting as his criticisms could be, and as wickedly funny as they could be, his compliments could absolutely send you to heaven. And I will never forget, I had a very, very small part in a production that was done at UF. And after the show was over, we were all in his class dissecting it, as we always did when a show was over. And each of the students put in their 2 cents, and then it got to him, and he hadn't said anything yet, but he just looked at me and said, "My favorite performance in the show was Keith Cassidy's." And coming from him, I can't tell you how much that compliment meant to me. And here I am, it's 35 years later, I'm still talking about it, I still remember it, and it's still the best compliment I've ever received from anyone.
I was accepted into the BFA program for musical theater, so in my sophomore year, I had Doc Shelton for acting. In the first class where I had to present my monologue, I got up to do my monologue, and being very nervous and inexperienced and all the things that go into that, I introduced myself in what was then my very high-pitched voice, and in a way that he quickly pointed out was apparently a question as to who I was. So probably something like, "Megan Addy, and I'm doing blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah," to which he immediately said, "Little Megan Addy, ga, ga, ga." And he proceeded to call me Little Megan Addy, ga, 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 the remainder of my time, which was 3 more years. Here I am now with a lower voice, and I think he would be very proud that my register finally landed somewhere that doesn't pierce people's eardrums.
I would like to now take you on a quick tour of Gainesville and some of the favorite haunts of Doc. Doc has been a faculty member for more than 33 years here at UF, and he's made his mark throughout Gainesville. So come on, join me and we'll have a quick little tour of his favorite haunts.
One bourbon, one scotch, one bill.
Well, here I am standing outside Ashley's. My understanding is for many years this was one of Doc's favorite haunts here in Gainesville. Year after year he would meet with his favorite students here, and they would discuss art, beauty, culture, and the art of acting.
Hey, what do you want?
Here I am, standing outside the front of the Hippodrome State Theater, where you can find David Shelton at every opening night, usually seated right here on this bench, enjoying a cigarette before the curtain goes up on the next hit play here at the Hippodrome. David has performed many times here at the Hip. This is certainly one of his favorite haunts, and for many, many years, he's been a regular here and a real mainstay of the Hippodrome. Well, here we are, back at the Constance Theater. This time, we're on the colonnade, right in front of the lobby of the Constance. On every opening night of our main stage performances, you would find David Shelton right here, enjoying one last cigarette before the curtain goes up for the evening.
Friends, Gators, alumni, lend me your ear. To paraphrase Shakespeare, who David loved so well, particularly when young actors would do scenes from Shakespeare in his acting class, I come to praise David Shelton, not to roast him. I know some of you are thinking, this is payback time. All those criticisms in his acting class, but not I. I will not take part in roasting this giant of a man by focusing on a few minor foibles that he has. Shelton taught me that an actor's voice, an actor's body, is his instrument. that it should be cherished. Well oiled. Well lubricated. We saw this Johnny-come-lately Ashley's Pub on the screen a moment ago. Do me a favor and clap your hands if you've ever been to the Windjammer. Shelton used to hold court at the Windjammer. As a matter of fact, I was talking to him one night about taking care of the actor's body and taking care of your instruments. And, you know, after 6 pictures and I think about 130 cigarettes, I understood what he was saying. You know, there was many a young, wide-eyed, bright-eyed, optimistic young actor that went into David's acting class. And, you know, maybe for the first time in their lives, somebody was really honest with them about the scene. It wasn't their Aunt Martha, it wasn't their friends at high school, it was someone being honest. Shelton has a zero tolerance for bullshit. He knows when you're not prepared, and you know he knows when you're not prepared. On those rare occasions where he gave you a compliment, you knew for certain that you'd done something right, and it meant something.
Dr. Shelton would always share choice words of wisdom to help guide and mold our young, impressionable acting hearts and minds. It usually went something like this. Remember, everybody,
Take your time. Take your time.
take your time. So we took our time. And after performing our masterworks for the class and Dr. Shelton, he put down his pen and paper, leaned forward, and looking at all of us proclaimed,
I didn't realize the paint was chipping off the wall.
Rather than privately critiquing our work, Dr. Shelton would generally reward us by addressing his comments to the entire group.
Have we forgotten everything we learned last year?
Who are these people? What do they want? You've all gone silly on me.
And when it finally came time to perform our thesis roles, we knew that we could still count on Dr. Shelton for his subtle and gentle methods of getting right to the heart of an issue.
Does anybody know what the fuck this play is about?
I like the performance. Not the thesis, the performance.
Would you mind shaving your back for this show?
Hi, my name's Lee Blair. I was MFA class of 1995. So my first audition at UF in grad school, David was directing The Rainmaker. So I was in this scene and we read through the scene and he goes, okay, let's go back and do it again. And he gave everybody a note, you know, you do this, you try that. Again, mind you, I had just arrived in Gainesville. 2-3 days. I had just met all of these people. Okay? In that little black box. David looks at me and goes, oh, Lee, could you try and butch it up a little bit this time? So I teach acting at West Virginia University in Morgantown, West Virginia. I teach acting and musical theater, and I tell my students that story sometimes, and they gasp. They lose their minds. Oh my God, you must have been so embarrassed. Oh my God, you must have been devastated. I mean, oh, how could he be so horrible? Oh my God, how could you even go on? Blah, 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 blah. And I look at them and go, yes. I was embarrassed. But he was right. David usually was. Over the years, I've thought about his acting class, and things, events, thoughts pop up years later where I go, oh, that's what David meant. And I still do that. We kept in touch over the years. emails mostly. I did attend his retirement celebration back in 2008. And I'd see him at SCTC every once in a while. He'd drop in. But the emails were great. A gift. A, hey bud, what's going on? Kind of email. And I'd answer him. Tell him what I was directing, classes, shows I was acting in, etc. The last email I got was December 21st. I hadn't gotten one in a while. And I will keep that email for as long as I live. Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Summed him up nicely. Here are some images, both visual and verbal, that always reminded me of my time with Shelton. Disappearing. You remember at the bar or the party when Shelton is there and suddenly he's not? No bye, no see you tomorrow, no later gator, simply gone, disappeared, vanished. No David. The way David checked his watch, does anybody remember that? Or when he said, Deborah, no one puts their hands on their hips. No one grabs their hands, wrings their hands during sleep, but... and Shelton's remarks are less than congratulatory about his death scene. And the actor says, but Shelton, I've never died before. To which Shelton responds, bullshit, Howard. We die a little every day. Up to the table she walks and says, Dr. Shelton, how can I be a better actor? How, huh? Really, tell me, how can I be a better actor? He paused, looked into space for just a few seconds, and he said, stop eating. Now there was a man with a lot of words, a lot of education. He could converse with us in Meisner, Moore, Stanislavski, Hagen, Bertowski, all of those things, but if he liked what you did on stage, and it was rare, he would say, and never backstage, but somewhere when you least expected it, in the bar, in the hall, right before a class, he would sidle over and very simply say, you done good.
David Doc Shelton was my acting professor, director, mentor, and friend. He once wrote me about his former students. I'm always a little surprised to find they were able to get along without me quite well. But he was so wrong. We are never without Doc. Every accomplishment, every artistic struggle, every time I walk out onto that stage, he is with me. And I'm sure no former students of his will ever point on stage unless a director specifically orders us to. And that fake coffee in your hand had better look hot. One of my favorite UF moments was being directed by Doc in What I Did Last Summer. In the play, I had to slap my teenage son, played by David Schlumpf, across the face, and I was struggling with the moment. One afternoon, Doc, David, and I were riding in an elevator, and he was talking about that moment. He said, you just need to slap him. I said, I know, I'm not sure why I can't get it. He said, slap him like this, and hauled off and slapped David across the cheek. David stood there slack-jawed, which made Doc giggle that tee-hee he would do. Best elevator ride ever.
Shelton, you could smoke then anywhere. And David lit a cigarette and looked at me and said, did you read the play? I said, David, you said this was scene work. I'm making audacious choices here. David was talking about being very serious and taking the life of an actor very seriously. And I want to tell you, David, every single morning of my life, I remember you. And what I remember is the speech that you gave us, that when you wake up in the morning, you have to give thanks to be an actor and economize your day. And the first thing to do is to sit in your bed. And while you were sitting in your bed, not to meditate, but to pull the covers up so you don't have to get out of your bed to make it. And I remember
as the father in cursive the starting class when he said,
"Does my poison scare you?"
A couple things really come to mind when I think about Dr. Shelton, and the first one is our very first day of acting class as freshmen. We're all on pins and needles because we'd heard about how Dr. Shelton was so tough and he made people cry all the time, and he was brutally honest. And he came into class smoking a cigarette in the upper lobby of Constance Theater, and he said, "Some of you I'm going to like, and some of you I'm just not going to like. And that's just the way it is." And I just was standing there kind of like with my jaw open, just thinking, wow, okay, we've really got our work cut out for us. And the second really vivid memory I have of Dr. Shelton is our very last day of acting class that semester. And, we were all excited because, finals were over and we're getting ready to go home for the summer. But he sat us all down and he wished us all the best, in the next semester. And he said that he believed that acting could change the world and it was very important. And he encouraged us to really follow our passions and to pursue it and to take it seriously. And I think he really, really believed that. And, that's always just stuck with me.
How good were those shows? Well, subject was Roses, 1980. I remember when it won and went to the regional, one of the judges commented it was the best show you'd ever seen. That was his acting.
I learned that no one ever really does this on stage. You're never going on stage. For 17 years, I've done this on stage, this. I have never done this on stage. My first acting scene in class, this is the other thing I learned from him. I learned that acting is about making choices. He said that over and over. My first acting scene, he walked up after the scene into that kind of...
But now mention that piece of paper with that awful handwriting on it. He took a drag from his cigarette, he looked at all of us and said, "Acting is about making choices. As soon as you've made some, let me know."
Colleagues and former colleagues, students and former students, friends. And I regard so many of you as my friends. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm absolutely overwhelmed. Thank you particularly to the people who made those speeches. I don't think they can fire me with 48 hours left to go. I want to encourage you to keep telling those stories. I don't think they're true, but they make me sound so much more interesting and clever than I am. You have my permission to embellish them all you like. Now, since these occasions have a little bit of a funereal stench about them, I want to make sure to tell you that I'm retiring from the University of Florida, not from life. From the theater. Everything good that's come to me in life since reaching the age of responsibility, everything good that's come to me in life, including my friendship with all of you is because one day someone got a little sloppy and left the door to the theater ajar and let me sneak in there. No one in my family had ever been to college before me. Just where I got the arrogance to just blithely assume I was going, I have no idea. But somehow, my parents managed it, and off I went, and no freshman and no institution in this country was ever greener. I had no idea, for example, that you could actually major in theater. And I certainly didn't know that once you finished, you could go back. And you could get more degrees for studying this thing that so fascinated me. I probably would have studied without the promise of a few more initials behind my name. The first play I was in college was a production of The Crucible. Now, I suspect that almost all of you have either read it or seen it or been in it or maybe even directed it. But I defy any of you to tell me who the character of Hopkins is. That's the character I played. So sit back, relax, put up your roll for you. Hopkins enters. Hopkins says, "The deputy governor has arrived." Hopkins exits. The director of the production, no doubt thinking he was being considerate of my time, allowed us out. I didn't have to come to rehearsal till the final week. Little realizing that nothing in life would have thrilled me more than to sit there night after night and watch this thing unfold. But I've always been good at following instructions by God, so I stayed away. And finally, the final week of rehearsals came. I knew my cues, I knew my line. I was in place 20 minutes before it was time for that entrance. So I heard the cue and I stepped on stage, and the play was going on without me. What happened, of course, is that they'd been rehearsing for so long and my part was so insignificant that they just kept going. Fortunately, the director made the big ham stop and let me say my line. And I was hooked. And I remain hooked to this day.